All right. So welcome everyone tonight to our panel. So tonight is all about the professional development resources that we offer within the College of Science and Technology, which all of you have been admitted to. So congratulations, of course. Tonight, the theme of tonight's event is going to be what you can do with a CST major with a focus on the biology, chemistry, and earth and environmental sciences department. So we're going to be exploring all the different resources and opportunities that you can have with the help of CST's professional development. So as I said, please feel free and you're highly encouraged to enter your questions in the Q&A feature at the bottom of the screen. Again, just looks like two speech bubbles. At the end of our presentation, we will introduce you to our four lovely panelists, which are 3 alumni and 1 current student, and they can answer any questions that you might have. So first, let's learn a little bit about our Office of Professional Development. So I want to introduce you to our powerhouse team that makes up CST's professional development, which would be Rose McGinnis and Kelsey Craig. So Rose, you want to get things started and then kick it off to Kelsey?
Hi, excuse me. Welcome everyone. We're so excited you could join us tonight. As Danny said, I'm the Director of Professional Development, but I could not do this work without Kelsey Craig, who is our career coach. She is critical for you guys to get to know and to meet. Between Kelsey and I, we just provide services that students can use and need for a variety of different professional development activities. Everything from reviewing your resume, to helping you with interviews, to discussing research and what kind of things you want to add to your resume. We send out weekly emails with all kinds of really interesting, cool opportunities that you can choose to follow. And I'll let Kelsey tell you about some of the events that we also hold each semester.
Yeah, so we have job fairs each semester, and that would be from employers all around the area. And then we also bring folks to campus who are interested in talking with all of our students in meetups. And so we do them before our fairs each semester, but then we do them throughout the semester. And last year we were really lucky around this time. We actually had the EPA who joined us for one of those, and it was a great, it was more information style, but it was a way for students to start building connections with employers and learning about what opportunities are available for them in a variety of fields in the, I guess, biology, chemistry, and especially earth and environmental science areas. And even recently, we've worked with University Career Center and our CST graduate admissions office to put together some pop-up events, which focused on if you wanted to get a graduate degree or a professional degree. And so we highly encourage students to just kind of check out what is available. So really the fact that you're either here or watching this later is really great first steps to learn what all you can do to know, do you want to go into get a job after college, or do you want to look at a graduate program, maybe professional school? I mean, all of those are certainly awesome options, and we are here to support you and talk about how to achieve those things all throughout your journey. So very excited that you're here. Thanks for joining, and we'll hand it back over to Danny.
Great, thank you both so much. Yeah, I think that what a lot of students don't realize is that you might visit schools, of course, and there's a central career center, and you can use all of those career services. And I think one of the nice things about Temple and CST in particular is that we have our own kind of career center just for the students within the College of Science and Technology. So when students come and visit with me, I always say, you know, a business resume is going to look really different from a biology resume. So you have these two amazing women right at your fingertips to help you with all of those things that separate you and make you a great candidate. So thank you both. So now that we kind of know what the resources that we provide are, I wanted to show you some examples of career paths that you might aspire to. So when you registered for this event, I asked you all to provide your dream job. Many of you have aspirations such as becoming doctors, surgeons, pharmacists, forensic scientists, environmental scientists, and researchers. And these can be your realities as a CST major. So you're definitely starting in the right place. But I wanted to show you some more career paths that you might consider. Okay, so what would this career panel be if we didn't highlight one of the most famous and popular public figures in health right now, Dr. Fauci? So even if you haven't been trying to watch the news too much over the past year, I think it would be tough to not have at least heard the name Dr. Fauci. So Dr. Fauci is the director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, and he is the chief medical advisor to President Biden. So as you know, he has been a driving force in our COVID-19 task force. And many of you have even decided to go into the health field after seeing the work of Dr. Fauci and the importance of healthcare heroes during this pandemic. So where do you even begin if this is your dream career? So this is kind of how we think Dr. Fauci would do it if he went to Temple. So based on this career path, you'd probably pursue a major in the biology or chemistry departments. So we think that he might be super interested in one of our newest majors, which is genomic medicine. So genomic medicine is learning how to use DNA and the genome to find cures and trends in different diseases. You can even look at evolution. So we definitely think he would be excited about pursuing genomic medicine. Biochemistry would also be an awesome major for him. So these are just two examples of what he could pursue. One of the great things about the majors within bio, chem, and earth and environmental sciences department is that the first 1 to 2 to even 3 semesters are really similar in coursework, because you all need to take foundational science courses and math courses before you excel into the higher levels. So even if you don't know exactly what you want your major to be right now, you're in a good spot by just picking one in these departments. We also think that he would complete some paid research through our undergraduate research program, also called the URP. And he might specifically want to do this in one of our institutes, such as the Institute for Genomics and Evolutionary Medicine, or even on our health sciences campus at our Lewis Katz School of Medicine. So the URP is an opportunity for students to do research under one of our faculty members, either on the main campus or the health sciences campus. And the health sciences campus, again, is where the School of Medicine is, the hospital, pharmacy school, other professional schools. And with this program, you can do it over the semester for course credit or over the summer as a paid experience. So you might know Temple is an R1 research institution, which means that many of our faculty members are conducting research in addition to their teaching duties. So it's a great opportunity. We also think that he would work closely with pre-professional health studies, which is also called PPSH, to pursue a pre-med track. Shreya, one of our panelists, is actually on a pre-med track, so you can ask her any questions that you might have about doing that. And then we think that he would enjoy doing some of our student orgs, such as Temple Emergency Medical Services, which is actually a group of students that get trained to be EMTs and provide some care around the Temple area, or other clubs such as Future Health Professionals or the Biology Journal Club. So switching gears a little bit, we have a fictional character. So this is Mark Watney from The Martian. The Martian was one of those movies I had heard about but never saw until quarantine, and I'm so glad that I did, so I would really recommend it. But Mark Watney was a botanist on a NASA crew, and he got left behind during a mishap on his cruise trip to Mars. So during that time, he used his botany and science skills to survive, like by growing his own food, until the crew could return to him in 4 years. So hopefully this won't happen to you in your lifetime, but needless to say, botany is a really cool field within biology or environmental science that you might find interesting. So this is how we think Mark would have done it at CST. So he would pursue a major in either Earth and Environmental Science department, so that would be environmental science or geology, or biology as well. I think some students don't realize biology is so, it's such a broad major. You know, you don't just have to go into a medical or health field, but you could do something such as ecology. So it's a really broad major. We also think he would participate in the URP or some type of paid research with the biology or the EES department. He would meet with Kelsey or Rose in the with professional development to create his resume and attend job fairs. And then we think that he would seek an internship or a fellowship with NASA or even the US Geological Survey. And lucky for us, one of our panelists tonight did just that. So Marley will be excited to talk to you about that. And then lastly, we think, of course, that he would join some CST student orgs such as the Bio Society. All right, and then last but not least, this is another movie that I watched over quarantine, at first against my will, but then I ended up enjoying it, which is Jurassic Park. So hopefully you know the story, but the focus in Jurassic Park is, of course, on dinosaurs. So Dr. Alan Grant is one of the main characters, and he is a paleontologist. And that means that he studies fossils to classify organisms and study their interactions with each other and their environments. So this is how we think Dr. Grant would have gotten his start at Temple. So he would pursue, of course, either an environmental science or most likely a geology major. And then lucky for him, he could complete some research with Dr. Allison, who is our resident researcher in paleontology, which is really awesome. We would also meet with our career coaches to create resume or attend some of those employer meetups that Kelsey was talking about. And then a cool thing about the geology major is that there is a fieldwork requirement that the students will do during their capstone, which is about 6 to 8 weeks over the summer. And then he would join student organizations for professional development, such as the Geology Club. So that was just a little bit about some fields in your majors that you may not have previously thought of, but they are out there, and you can use some of the resources within CST to get experience that will help you be prepared for those jobs out there. So I know it is fun to look at the fictional characters and then also public figures, but I think it might be even more useful to talk to some people who have actually done this. They've used the resources and have gone on to get some of your dream jobs. So for our panel today, as I mentioned, we have 3 alumni as well as 1 current student. So as you can see, all of them are in different fields. So we have an alum from biology department, from earth and environmental sciences, chemistry, and then Shreya is great because she's a current student for biochem, which is shared between biology and chemistry. So I'm going to unshare my screen now so I can see all of the lovely panelists. And then attendees, if you just want to start putting your questions in the chat feature, that would be great. I do have some questions that you submitted when you registered, but I want to know what you're thinking now. But perhaps to kind of get you going, let's have our panelists introduce themselves. So we'll start with the alum and then we'll go to Shreya. But the alum, if you could just give us kind of a brief spiel about you. So starting from, what you kind of did during your time at Temple that led you to where you are now. And then if you just want to talk a little bit about what your job actually entails, that would be great. So we're going to go, we can go alphabetically by last name. So we'll start with Tom and then Marley and then Danielle.
Sure. Hi, I'm Tom. So while I was at Temple, I got my undergrad in biology at Temple, and I also got my master's at Temple in the professional science master's program. So during my time at Temple, I did multiple URP activities. I did some through Darius Balsinus, looking at zebrafish and looking at specific genes. And then I also went over to the Lung Center at Temple, looking at COPD and other lung-related projects as well. And then after that, I got my first job as a research tech in the same department, the COPD department at Temple. From there, and now I am at Janssen as an associate scientist.
Very cool. And could you just explain a little bit what you do at Janssen?
As an associate scientist, I'm mainly a bench scientist. So I do mostly in vitro ex vivo work. And for that just means in culture. I'm not mostly an animal scientist, but I do have to do some animal work. And mostly it's just looking at, I'm in the pre-portfolio for drug development. So any experiments looking at different targets for drugs in immunology, I'm pretty much doing multiple experiments a day, looking at things around that aspect.
And Tom, I think if I remember correctly, when you started out, you thought med school was your goal, correct?
Yeah, that didn't turn out so well. But not because of my GPA, but because of all the other.
I think that I think is really important. There's a lot of students who come to us with the goal of going to med school, and then somewhere along the way during their college career, they either decide, like Tom did, that really wasn't what he wanted to do, or the path is too long, or lots of different reasons. But the really cool thing about CST is the foundational coursework, the undergraduate research, and all of the opportunities we have allow you to change your mind, right? You're not in some strict path that you can't turn around from. So between our majors, our programs, our curriculum, our experiences, it allows for flexibility that if you decide this is not what I thought I wanted to do, you can do that and still graduate in 4 years, which is really important.
Definitely agree.
Thank you for adding that. Thanks, Tom. Okay, Marley, go ahead.
Thanks. Also on that note, I started as a biology major when I got accepted. And then I went to Experience Temple Day and I was like, I'm going to be a geology major. So that's what I ended up doing. I graduated with my geology degree in 2018. And throughout my undergrad, I took advantage of a few opportunities offered by CST. I did the Science Scholars Program, which funds undergraduate research and other experiences. So I used some of that funding to do a hydrology project with Dr. Laura Turan. I presented my assessment of an urban stream at CST's undergraduate research symposium, which was really my first experience discussing my science. The following summer, I used my funds to pay for a summer field course where I did geologic mapping in South Dakota and Wyoming. And during that same summer, I got an internship working for the Academy of Natural Sciences as a biogeochemistry lab intern, where I performed analysis on water samples from local streams and wetlands. Another opportunity I took advantage of is CST travel funds. So I applied for those to present my research in Seattle at the Geological Society of America National Conference. And then during my senior year, I worked as a materials team lead with the engineering department on NASA's robotic mining competition. And that was a really fun experience because I got to learn to convey science to a team of people with differing backgrounds. Currently, so after I graduated, my field camp nominated me for a US Geological Survey internship. And I ended up earning a placement in DC starting right after graduation with a project that investigates the spectral signatures, which is sort of like the DNA of reflected energy of cyanobacteria. Directly after that internship, I was hired on full-time at the USGS to work with the Earth imaging satellite called Landsat. And I worked on a few projects there. One took me to Africa to do an environmental impact assessment of a refugee settlement, where I ground truthed some remote sensing data sets. I also worked on some space policy with NASA. And after working with the USGS for 2 years, I wanted to go back to doing research. And so currently, I am at the University of Hawaii at Manoa studying planetary science. Specifically, my research surrounds lunar geology. And I just presented at a conference last week about impact craters on the moon. And next week I have a telescope observation session on Mauna Kea, looking for water on the moon. Thanks.
That is so cool. Thank you so much for sharing. Okay, Danielle, you can go ahead.
Hi, everyone. Danielle. I majored in chemistry in 2014. Shortly after I graduated, I got the job that I'm still currently at. I work at NMS Labs. It's a privately funded forensics lab. Tons of fun, not at all like CSI, but still very rewarding in different ways. I went a different route when I was at Temple. I just got jobs. So when I was a sophomore, I started working up in the organic chemistry labs and helping with the setups and trying to streamline the process, which also gave me a hand at some projects, which came in handy for my job, where there's always a lot of projects to be working on and process improvements. Yeah, I was asked a question, what kind of jobs can you get with a chemistry major? I was actually surprised by how many different industries you can actually get into. Makeup industry, the food industry, could go work for the government like the DEA. There's tons of options. I chose forensics because I watched a lot of NCIS and it actually really interested me. So tons of avenues.
Thank you, Danielle. Yeah, I'm going to come back to you because I do want to ask a little bit more about what you do like in your day-to-day if it's not like CSI. But Rose and Kelsey, do you think Danielle kind of covered that question about career paths for chemistry, or did you want to add anything?
Yeah, I agree with Danielle. I become amazed every semester when we meet with new companies and alumni who return to campus or who keep in touch with us, the vast differences and different types of jobs you can do. One summer I went to visit some of our alum who work in Devon, and because it's after 6 o'clock, my brain's gone. And they work in a manufacturing organization, and they test the formulas and the foundations, the chemical pieces that go on catalytic converters. So they spend all day with the cars running and testing the catalytic converters and the output and the formulation. It was absolutely fascinating what they did. And I had no idea whatsoever that you would do that with a degree in chemistry. There's also a lot going on, obviously, now in quality control and manufacturing processes, GMP, I believe it's called, and just making sure, for instance, all of the vaccines that are being created, there are a large number of chemists that are watching and monitoring and testing the manufacturing processes for all the vaccines that are being created. There are also chemistry majors who work on clinical trials to ensure that the right foundations and the right formulas and the right products are getting to the right patients in the clinical trials. So just about, you know, everything you can think of: food coloring, food additives, cosmetology, chemicals, testing, all of those things use chemists. So unbelievable number of degrees and careers in chemistry.
Great, thank you. That's super helpful. Okay, Shreya, how about you tell us a little bit about you?
Hi, so my name is Shreya. I actually applied to Temple and was accepted as a bioengineer, but I switched to biochemistry. So currently I'm a junior biochemistry major. I'm doing an art minor and a certificate in genomic medicine, and I'm also pre-med. I'm part of the Temple University Honors and SSP program, where I actually had the opportunity to work at 2 labs, one at Fox Chase Cancer Center, which focuses on cancer prevention and control. And I actually started that the summer before I came to Temple, and one at the pharmacy school, which focuses on gold nanoparticle synthesis, which I joined my freshman year. And throughout my experience with these labs, I've had the opportunity to present my research at the undergraduate research symposium and through scientific writing. And I will be applying to medical school this summer. Thank you.
Well, sounds like you already have an amazing resume, so I would let you in if it were up to me. Okay, so thank you everyone for introducing yourselves. Attendees, make sure that you're putting your questions in the chat feature. I'm going to start things off with a question that was submitted beforehand. Now, this is a question that I would like for each of the alumni to answer. It's kind of a broad question, but when you were applying for jobs or graduate school and you were in your interviews, what types of experiences that you had at Temple do you think helped you kind of stand out to either get that job or get that placement into graduate school?
I can start. So I think the biggest thing that stood out for me for my first job out of undergrad and while I was getting my master's was that I was in the department before I actually got my full-time job. I was doing URP in that department, and so my boss, excuse me, knew exactly who I was. He saw me every day, and that got me in. So really making that connection to that job. And then for my second job, it's just in industry, it's what you know and a little bit of who you know, but a lot of what you know. And so a lot of my research tech job was focused on immunology. So I was able to transfer that into and using those skill sets that they needed in the next job to get into industry. But with industry, it's a lot harder to do that. But for your first job out, it's definitely good to look at labs that you know the people already in, and they can get you that first experience right outside without, if you don't have a nice foundation.
I can chime in here. I attended 3 CST job fairs while I was at Temple. Rose does a great intro right before you do the job fair to go over interviewing skills. And honestly, that last one, my senior year, helped me the most. But by going to those job fairs, I was able to build a relationship with the HR recruiter at my current job. And I think that helped me a lot. So again, a little bit of who you know and a lot of what you know gets you in the door.
Thanks, Danielle. And I think another thing to follow up with what Danielle's saying is, Kelsey and I work really hard with the employers in this area. So we have built over the years strong college relationships with most of the major pharmaceutical scientific organizations in the area. Johnson and Johnson, Janssen's part of them, Merck, NMS Labs, and companies you've never even heard of, that are small companies, Adaptimmune and a bunch of other companies in the area, to the point where when they're looking to hire, they'll send Kelsey a job description and say, okay, we need 2 of these. And we get it out to students, and students apply, and hopefully they get selected. But the key is they get to the table, and that's really the most important thing. It's exactly what Tom and Danielle said. It really is about these organizations knowing about our curriculum, knowing how strong our programs are, and knowing how strong our students are, and then building that alumni base in those organizations so that when future openings come up, they look around and go, well, those Temple students worked out really well. Let's go back there. So, our strong alumni base and our relationships specifically with the life science companies really does help students find those opportunities.
And just to piggyback off of that again, I stayed in touch with some of my professors, and I email them a lot about current job opportunities that we have open at my company. And in the beginning, I emailed Rose a lot as well. My professor, Dr. Kayer, sends tons of students my way to email me, ask questions, and if I can't answer them, I do put them in touch with somebody who is able to answer all of their questions. So your professors are also very good resource to go to.
That's a great point, Danielle. Thanks for adding that. Marley, I'd love to know what you would say too. And then can you also add my next question for you specifically is just that you had so many different opportunities during your undergrad. So kind of like how you found them and how you decided to go after them. So, yeah.
Yeah, I guess I'm going to start with the first question. So sort of like what Danielle was saying, talk to your professors, especially the mid-level career scientists, because they have had the most recent experience looking for positions. I had a mentor who actually, there wasn't really any one specific event, but when I interviewed with the US Geological Survey, this one mentor had told me to take a lot of math classes if that was something you were strong at. And so instead of just stopping at Calc 2, I took Calc 3 and I took linear algebra, and then I ran out of time. But the interviewer said, like, look, the reason I'm really considering you is because of this math background that you have. And so that was a big deal for them. And so anything that can diversify you like that will really be helpful. So if you can diversify your curriculum, that's great. The second question, I actually have to disagree a little bit. I think that it really is about who you know. And I was surprised by that in science because I did not expect that. I didn't think I really would need to talk to that many people. You sort of think, oh, I'm a scientist. I just sort of sit in my cubicle and a little bubble. But that wasn't true at all for me, at least. It really was all about who I knew. Like the academy position, I knew somebody at Drexel who worked there and was a doctoral student and was like, oh, I'll take you on for some research. And then for my US Geological Survey, migrating to grad school, I had met my advisor's boss at this conference. And so it was all just about putting yourself out there and talking to people and going to these conferences. Even if the conference isn't super interesting to you, it's really about connecting in a way that you can't do just by sitting in your classroom every day. So I think it was more about getting those connections and also having really strong scientific background, but establishing your network, especially in undergrad, is pretty amazing. And I think a bit of a hidden gem.
Yeah, and you know what? Thank you for adding that. And I think a misconception, at least for me, with the whole like who you know, you make it think like, oh, I need to have a family member who knows someone, or I need to have this. But like you're saying, it's who you know because you're putting yourself out there into these networking situations. Like you know, so that was a really good point to add. So thank you. I have a question for Shreya. So Shreya, you got started really early with your research. You know, as you said, before you came, and then also in your freshman year. So what advice would you give to the students like you who might be really eager to start? Like, how did you go about it? And is that typical? So yeah.
So funny thing is, for Fox Chase Cancer Center, the lab that I work with there, I actually did that as my senior project in high school. And I stayed since 2018 February until now, which is really long. And really, it's the only thing you really have to do is you have to just send an email to the PI and ask them if they have any availabilities, if they're willing to take on a student and train. And I got a lot of computational research, especially now during COVID and everything. I think that's really coming in handy for me. And like I said, it's just really simple. You just have to reach out and ask if they have any availabilities. And if they do, they'll take you on.
Thank you. That's very helpful. Okay, I'm going to go with another question that we had submitted. So this one might be more geared towards Kelsey and Rose, but someone just wants to know, what are the alumni resources available to students?
Yeah, so Rose and I, as much as we would love to meet with every single alumni, our bandwidth tends to be more focused on current students. However, the University Career Center has resources for students. I believe it's your up to 5 years. Please don't quote me on this. Check the websites always for the most up to date. But you can schedule an appointment with a career coach. I want to say a few times a year. Check in with them if you're having a tough time. If it's a circumstance where you're like, oh, you can always email Rose and I, right? If we're able to see you, we will do our best to make that happen. But certainly in terms of those career services, the University Career Center is going to be a good option. All of our events in CST are open to current students and alumni. So any job fair, any employer events, anything that you may see. And so at Temple, we use Handshake, which is a pretty common career services platform for students to find jobs, find events, internships, connect with employers even. And once you're in there as a Temple student, you are in there for life as long as your Temple email is active. So the events, the employer, like everything in there is open to you. And then the university as a whole, I guess in more like general alumni services, does have an alumni office that has this really great OWL network, I believe is what it's called. And so you can connect, I believe even as a current student, you can connect with alumni, and then as an alumni, you can come back and connect with current students and share your knowledge and resources. So it's a really great kind of circle, right? Like it all plays back in to each other. But Rose, I don't think I missed anything. I think that was.
No, and then just kind of putting it all together. So are there ways for current students in CST to connect with CST alum?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. The CST Alumni Board is a board of just CST alumni, and they have this phenomenal program called the Owl to Owl Mentor Program. And that program has volunteers from CST. Tom, we're going to have to hitch up to be a volunteer. And they will typically mentor a sophomore through their senior year if it's a good fit. And of course, now it's all virtual, but they work with them on resumes and networking and elevator pitches and confidence, right? Just someone, behind you to say, you've got this, you can do this. And they're very active. They'll come to our career fairs. They'll participate with us in, networking events, in pop-ups where we, get students prepared, like Danielle said. And we have a very active, engaged alumni network.
Great, thank you both. That's really helpful. Okay, so I have a question for Tom. So Tom, you pursued your professional science master's in biotechnology. Can you tell us a little bit about why you decided to do that and then what you learned in that program?
So why I decided to do that. So I really figured that out after I decided to do that, but here it goes. So I decided to pursue that program because I knew I wanted to go to industry. That was why I originally went into it, but that wasn't what ended up happening with it. I really gained a lot of connections actually from that program, and that's really where it benefited me. A lot of what happened in that program was I just expanded on knowledge in biology. So when you're doing your undergrad, you go in your wet labs, but they have very basic techniques. And so what that program does is it really connects you to the what you're doing in industry. Because when you're undergrad in biology, you're not really getting that what do people use this for in industry? How are we using this for drug development? How are we solving these issues? You get basic techniques, but you don't really connect that. And I also, it's still a master's program, so it still has that component of a capstone where you need to do a research project, like comparable to a master's, and write up it's not a full thesis, but it is comparable to a thesis where you have to write it up and have a project with a mentor. I ended up doing it in the same lab I was working, because I was working full-time as a research tech while doing that. So I just added on a project to that. And so, yeah, it's a master's program that essentially prepares you for industry by giving you professional connections, and also really drives home what drives the connection from biology as an undergrad to industry and pharmaceuticals, I would say. And there's other connections to other biotechnology programs. You just really have to explore that in the program. That was the path I took through the program. They also have environmental biotechnology and other things available.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, Danielle, so coming back to you as I promised, can you tell us a little bit about what your day-to-day is like in your career? I think that we do have some students who are interested in forensics, or at least I get emails all the time. So if you could just explain that a little bit, that would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. So I happen to just work on the toxicology side. So think like DUIDs, overdoses. We have a processing department where they process any sample that comes in through our shipment. They assign all the A codes to it, which basically just tells us what they're testing it for. We have an in-house screening department that does all of our screening, so that when they do the confirmation testing, you know really what you should be looking for. So my day-to-day, so I am considered an analyst 3. That's a senior analyst in my department. So my duties are a little bit more in depth as opposed to like a new person, but it's the same. So I come in, I'll check my schedule. If I'm assigned a prep, I go, I do that prep. Basically, all that means is like you print out your prep batch, has all your sample IDs. I don't know anybody's names. I don't know anything about the case. I think that's a really fun part. I only get to know about the case if I get a subpoena for it. And then obviously, I know, okay, this is the person, this is where it was done. This is why I need to go and testify. I will tell you that I have gone to Indiana one time, sat in a courtroom for 45 minutes to have somebody plead, and then I got to come home. And that's mostly the case. But the toxicology side is kind of fun. My department specifically handles the cannabinoid testing, amphetamine testing, benzodiazepines, and most recently, we just got umbilical cord testing as well. So that's been fun.
That is really cool. Thank you for sharing that. I think that's super helpful. So we did receive a question in the chat, and for those students who are participating live, make sure that you ask your questions now as we are coming up on time, and we want to know what you want to know about. So this student asked, as a biochem major, what would the steps I would have to take at Temple to successfully pursue a career as a pharmacist? So I'll start with this, and then Shreya, I'll just have you talk about some of the resources through pre-professional health studies. I think that would be great. So pharmacy is one of those paths where there's one of those careers where there's kind of a couple different paths that you can choose to get there. But since you are a biochem major, I'm going to assume that you likely want to earn your bachelor's degree. So, and the reason that I say that is for pharmacy, you don't actually have to have a bachelor's degree. You just need to take the about 60 prerequisite credits that are required to apply for pharmacy school. And then you can apply directly there. Now, for students who aren't completely sure if they want to be a pharmacist or kind of want to keep a couple more options open, we definitely encourage you to pursue your bachelor's degree. So biochemistry would be a great major for that, as it has all the prerequisites necessary. So that is just one way to start. So for any professional degree that you want to go into, we have an office on campus called Pre-Professional Health Studies, or PPHS. And this is an undergraduate advising office that's dedicated to students on a pre-professional track. So Shreya, if you want to talk about some of the resources they provide, that'd be great.
Yeah, so PPHS is wonderful. They give you advice on kind of the coursework you have to take, and they advise you through the general application process. I've worked with PPHS since my freshman year because going in, I knew I wanted to go into medical school. And they advised me through like my coursework. I would actually meet with them every semester, like when I had to like sign up for my classes, just to make sure that I'm on the right track. And they also give you good feedback on your personal statement, your resume, and like other things. You could also always go to CST as well with Rose and Kelsey, because they can also like give feedback. And I think one of the most, especially as someone who's applying to medical school right now, I think one of the most helpful things has been like my personal statement, having it read, having practice for interviews and stuff, even though it's kind of early. But I think like they've just been really helpful and active in their involvement throughout. And they also help you set up an e-portfolio where you basically just write up everything that you have to submit into your application, your activity list, your personal statements, all in one place. And so this kind of makes it much easier on us students, because when you apply, you really just have to copy and paste things in at that point. So PPHS has been a great help.
Yeah, I want to stress that, Danny, because, you know, students whose goal is one of these competitive professional school, it's not something that you leave till your senior year. You just don't decide senior year. I mean, some students do, don't get me wrong, but they put themselves under a lot of stress when that happens. So if you really think your goals are aligned to a professional school like dentistry or veterinary or, you know, even today, physician's assistants or pharmacy, you really want to meet with them early and often, as Kelsey and I say, because they will be able to give you recommendations and suggestions of, okay, if you're this far along, here's what you should have accomplished. If you're this far along, here's what you should have accomplished. And that really helps students know if all of the steps that need to be done that work up to that professional degree align with them. For instance, you know, if you have to volunteer and you have to shadow and you go through that and you go, I don't like this, right? You're not waiting to the end to determine that this is maybe not the career you thought it was, or is not the right thing for you. So they're an amazing office. They're a really amazing resource for our students.
I think also a quick thing to add on to that. So I have a good, it's really nice to have like a close mentor as well, someone you know that's already in the field, because I was told earlier on, pursue what you enjoy. Don't just go be like, I'm pharmacy, so I have to pursue only pharmacy related things, because I think one thing that I've done is that I pursue stuff I enjoy. I'm an art minor. I love painting and drawing and, you know, just art in general. I came to Temple as a dancer who danced for like 9 years of my life. And so just really have the opportunity and use that opportunity at Temple to like pursue stuff that you actually enjoy, because that will not only like help in the application process, it'll help you stand out from other people, but it's just something that will make you like happy and as you like pursue your coursework and stuff at Temple.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing that. That's really helpful. And Rose, you kept using the word amazing. And one thing I was thinking of that was amazing was I actually had a pre-pharmacy student. I mean, he ended up being biochem last year, and he pursued a research experience. And then he really wanted to do a research experience in pharmacy. And he said that he reached out to you, of course, and you had set him up. I hope I don't get this wrong, but he was working with a pharmacist at the Temple Hospital doing, I can't remember if it was kidney transplants or it was some sort of transplant surgeon. And then he was working with the pharmacist to give them drugs for after their surgery. Mm-hmm. If that's correct.
Yes.
So another, in addition to the resources through PPHS, finding these research opportunities and having the health sciences campus where you can pursue that is going to be really helpful as well. So I'm just gonna finish with one final question if we don't receive any more in the chat. I think that this would be geared more towards Marley and Thomas, or Tom, sorry. on the terms of research. So when students come to these events, they probably really hear like research, research, research. So when you first started pursuing research, what made you want to do that? Did you always know you wanted to do that? Did you think it would look good on resume? And then how did you kind of find your niche and what you enjoyed the most?
Yeah, I can start with that. I actually didn't really know if I wanted to do research, and I had my first research experience, and I was like, okay, like I'm gonna try this. I'm gonna try this and keep going with it and see what becomes of it. But honestly, one of the most valuable things that I got out of it, even when I worked for the US Geological Survey and I did some more industry work, like working in that biogeochem lab, just like learning how to talk about science in a way that made other people understand what I was saying. So you want to get that experience. And I would say not just research, but I would take a programming class if you can. I know this is sort of off topic, but something I wish I had done is taken at least one programming class, because here I'm in grad school and it's actually one of those hard skills like research. I'm like, oh, I'm fine, I can do research. One of the hard skills I really wish I had done was take a programming class, because right now I'm learning it and I'm a little slow. So yeah, I would say that would be one key advice.
So I can jump in. So as Rose pointed out, I didn't know I wanted to do research first. I thought I wanted to be a doctor, and I'm not going to go, it would take me way too long to explain the process that went from me going from a doctor to that. So I'm not going to do that. But what really got me into research was just answering unknowns, even the smallest questions. It's almost like it's a loop of just answering unknown questions that you really get into, because no one knows these answers yet. And you can figure that. And second programming class, I took the 3-course credit. It actually has helped me in my job a lot. For when you have these large sets of data in biology, you can actually use programming relatively well. So I was actually, right before I started this meeting, using an R program to graph all of my data so that I don't have to manually do it myself. Because it would take me 3 hours what a program can take 5 minutes to just put all that data in when you have these large data sets of thousands of different points. And so that's one way. There's many other ways you can use programming, but that's just one easy way where for my basic understanding, I can set that up relatively easily.
Yeah, and as Tom said, the computer science department offers what's called a certificate in computer programming, which is really easy to add in to any science major. Again, it doesn't make you a software engineer working for Google when you graduate, but it gives you enough about the foundations of computation, algorithms, and data to allow you to become more of a computational scientist and to be able to use those foundational programming and grafting and data analysis tools. And it's only 3 courses, so it's not hard to fit in, but it really just gives you enough that you need, without having to have a minor or a major in computer science.
Yeah, that's great. And thank you both for that piece of advice. I think that is really important to point out, and same thing that Shreya said about pursuing classes that you're interested in. College is about kind of finding what you like and what you don't like. And when you go to a school like Temple that has over 150 different majors, you can take courses in any of these majors. So you're being taught by professionals in the field, and it can be a class that you get credit for. So whether you do want to learn a skill such as programming to make your life a little bit easier, or if you want to take a dance class because you love dance and you want to get better, if you want to take a course on social media, if you want to take an education course so you can go help in the school district of Philadelphia, you can do all of those things. And there is room in your schedule to do that, which is great. But if we don't receive any more questions, I think that this is a great place to stop. I want to thank all of the panelists for being here tonight. I know that I learned so much, and I'm sure that the students did as well, and are feeling excited about the resources that they could have at Temple within the College of Science and Technology. So for all of you watching, whether you're watching live or you're watching this recording, thank you for attending. We love having these events. We love talking to you about what makes CST so special. So again, congratulations on your acceptance. Please know that at any time, if you decide that Temple is the place for you, you can make your deposit on your TU portal. If you have any questions that came out of this event or anything that you've just been holding on to, please email me. My email is D as in my first name, London as in my last name. So just dlondon@temple.edu. And I would be very happy to help you throughout this entire process or connect you with any of these panelists that you saw here tonight. So thank you everyone for attending. Thank you to the panelists, and I hope that everyone has a great night. Bye.